In a recent video, I restored or rebuilt this old Diamondback Century road bike. I had gotten it cheap and it was in fair condition. My goal in that video was to see if I could restore it and rebuild it and turn it into a bike that I would want to ride. The conclusion I came to at the end of that video was that this bike, even though it's a nice bike, it really wasn't worth the effort. I didn't like the 8-speed drivetrain and I didn't like the way the bike rode, so the ride was just way too stiff. That got me thinking though, if I had made a few different decisions when I rebuilt it, could I have ended up with a much better bike that I would have been happy with? So in today's video, we're going to revisit the decisions I made in that video. We're going to do some upgrades and we're going to see if for just a little bit more money, I can actually turn this into a good bike. One that at least that I want to ride on a daily basis. So if that interests you, let's get started. You guys had some really good ideas in the comment section of that other video. Give me ideas of things I could have done differently that would have made the bike better for about the same amount of money. One of the things I regret about the original build is keeping that 8-speed drivetrain. When I had to replace the shifters, I should have taken a step back and looked at the overall cost, but I thought it was just going to be the shifters. I didn't know it was also going to turn out to be the derailleurs and the chain. So this time I am pulling all that old Claris stuff off and I'm replacing it with a Shimano 105 5800 drivetrain. I actually got this whole group set for $350. So that included the shifters, the derailleurs, the chain and cassette, and the calipers. I spent too much money initially on those zip bars. I actually do want to take them back and put them on the Kona. So I found this set of zip service course handlebars. These were $20 on eBay. I really want those DT Swiss wheels that you saw me put on. I want those for my Austro Daimler build. I've been eyeing them since I pulled them out of the box. So I got this set of Casserium Elites. I got these on eBay. They were $100 for the pair and then $30 shipping. What's great about these is they're light, about 1,800 grams for the set, but they came with tubes and tires. So for $130, I get rims, tubes, and tires. That's going to save me about $60 compared to what we did before. These need some rim tape, so I've got some from my parts bin I'm going to put on. And then I'm going to fit these tires so we can put those on the bike. All right. I'll show you that Austro Daimler if you're curious. Right now it's just a frame, but it is a beautiful frame. I'm super excited about the build, even though I've had it on my shelf for like a year. You've probably seen it in 4 or 5 videos. But I'll show you that so you guys can see it. It's completely off topic from today's video though. I did check and there is a paint drying channel. And the guy's got one video where he just slaps paint on a wall, it's white paint. And the video is 10 hours long and he's got something like 2.5 million views on that. So little did I know, but paint drying videos seem to be lucrative. It seems to be a lucrative business. So, you know, if you're looking to get into YouTube, you don't really have any idea what you want to do, you know, there's an idea that's pretty easy. Apply some paint to something fun to look at, point a camera at it, let it dry, and record a time lapse. If you're lucky like that guy, you'll get a million views. The cassette that came with that group set is a Shimano CS HD 800-11, or at least the lock ring is. It's not actually written on the cassette anywhere, so I can't be 100% sure. But this is an 11 to 32 11 speed. I can't recall if I need a spacer with these Casserium wheels, so I'm going to start with a 1.85 millimeter spacer, and then if it turns out it's too tall, if I get too much stack, I'll pull it back out. Yeah, that's way too much stack. All right, so there we go, confirmed. You don't need that 1.85 millimeter spacer. The wheel came with a, hold on. Cassette parts everywhere. That wheel came with a 1 millimeter spacer. So I wonder if that's the one I really ought to be using. So that's here. So let's try that again, but this time we're going to go with no spacer. So I'm just going to put it on without any sort of a spacer. This is supposed to be an 11-speed free hub body, so we'll see. I think that'll be all right. All right, I didn't like how that pulled up. Yeah, so apparently we do need that 1mm spacer. We're learning together. So I'm going to pull this back off, and I'm going to fit a 1mm spacer on this Casserian hub for use with this CS800 free hub. I wish I was skilled enough to just pull this off and have it stay together, but I am not. Sprockets will go everywhere. So we're going to try again. Here's a 1mm spacer. We're going to put that on, and then we're going to try and then we're going to put the cassette back on. So once I get this on, I'll use that free hub tool and I'll tighten it down. And then this wheel will be ready to go on the bike. I'm not going to put it on just yet because we've got to do all the rest of the drivetrain. So I think once this wheel is done, I'm going to switch over. I'm going to bring the bike in. We'll pull the crank, we'll pull the derailleurs, we'll pull the shifters. Basically, we'll take it back apart. I think we're going to have to rewrap the handlebars, which is unfortunate because I just wrapped them. All right, let's see how this fits. Oh yeah, that felt right. I can never keep it straight which cassettes need what spacers on what free hubs. So it's usually trial and error for me. But we're good there. So let's get the bike in here and let's get it stripped down of the things it needs to have stripped down, and we'll get that drivetrain put on it. I should have washed this wheel. I got the bike taken apart. I've removed everything we're going to upgrade. It felt a little weird taking a bike apart that I put together 2 days ago, but it's taken apart, so now I can show you what we're going to put on it, and we're going to put it back together. These are the shifters that came with that group set. These are Shimano 105 5800s, so this is a 2x11 setup. I think these are, what, 3 generations old now? So we've got the R7100, which is the new 12-speed, R7000, and 5800. So yeah, these are 3 generations old. These are in really good shape for their age. Oop. But we're gonna do just like you saw before. I'm gonna install these, kind of guesstimate alignment, set them both to the same position. And then once the bike is together, but before I've got bar tape on it, of course, right? I'm going to set it down on the ground and we'll get these properly aligned. I'm really excited for this. I'm hoping that it works out. You know, I would really like this to be a nice bike. And so if it does work out, we'll learn something, right? We'll learn that we should spend Robert's money wisely And if we make wise choices, we can make a bike that's really nice for not so much money. But if it doesn't work out, then we'll learn we need to spend Robert's money more responsibly. And I will have spent, I don't know, $300 or $400 more on this setup, but you guys will learn a lesson, and I guess so will I. I guess I should have mentioned, so shifters are on. Now we're going to install the cables. I have high hopes that I can reuse the cables, but chances are really good that I'm going to get them in and they're going to be slightly too short, or they're going to be creased. You know, something's going to happen, so I can't reuse those cables. But I'm going to give it a shot. I really should buy one of those bulk boxes of cables. You know, like Jaguar will sell a box of like 100 cables. Problem is, it's like 250 bucks. But I go through cables like crazy in this shop, and every time I replace a cable, it's like $6 or $7. So it would be money well spent. I just have to spend it. But anyway, let's get this bike turned. I'm going to start with the rear derailleur. We'll put that on, and then we'll put the front one on. Actually, we should probably put the crank on and then put the front one on. We'll do that. I just realized this is a shadow rear derailleur, so this is not a 5800. I was expecting a 5800 derailleur. I don't see any reason why this won't work with that 5800 drivetrain or those shifters. What is this? This is an RDR 7000, so that's unexpected. It's actually a nicer derailleur, I think. But I'll get it put on here and then we'll get it set up. These install just like any other derailleur, except I'll bring you in here and show you. There are two alignment tabs on the back, and you would think that they fit in between that B-tension land on the derailleur hanger, but they don't. They sit so that when they're installed and tightened down, they're pretty much level with the ground. If you put one of these on and that's more up and down, you'll know it's not right, but you'll also never get it to shift correctly. That looks pretty good. And then this is the cable that was already on the bike. This is the one I put on before. This is the little whip cable that Shimano includes with the derailleur. I like to use this instead of like a Jaguar cable or one of the bulk cables because I think they work better. I think that's probably just in my head, but you know, like I've said before, once you get an idea in your head. So that looks good. I want to put the front derailleur on, but before I do that, I need to fit the crank so I know where to align it. So I'm going to grab the crank. Let's get that put on. This is the crank that came with that group set. I just realized I didn't have it on the bin when I showed you guys the other parts that came with it. This one's kind of cool because it's a silver arm. You don't see many of those, but this one's got a silver arm with black rings. This is a standard crank, so this is a 5339. I happen to have some 5034 rings in my bins, 105 5334s. There's a mosquito in here. So I'm going to swap this out and we're going to go from a standard gearing to a compact gearing. I'm going to keep the black rings and the silver crank. So when this is put together, it'll look just like this. I kind of like this look. I think it reminds me, you know, like of what cranks looked like in the late 90s, back when they had aluminum arms that were polished and black rings. So I'm not going to show you guys swapping the chain rings. You know what that looks like. But I am going to swap them. I'll come back and we'll get this crank in. All right, I got the chain ring swapped, so now it's got a 5334. The more I look at it, the more I like this silver and black. So I'm going to put this on, get it torqued down. I'm not going to show you that because we went through that in great detail on the last video. I'll put a link to it up above, so if you haven't seen that last video, you'll know what I'm talking about. I cannot sing, I can't carry a tune even if I had to. You know the old phrase, can't carry a tune in a bucket? Yeah, that's me. But I've got two girls and they're always singing. And so to participate, I will often sing in moos. So things like moo, 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 moo. So sometimes I find myself mooing in my videos and then I've got to go and edit it out. I'm not going to edit that one out. I'm going to leave that in there for you guys. Hopefully you are nice in the comments section. You don't really turn to me for my horrible singing abilities. All right. I think we're good. Oop, can't forget the popper. All right. So the crank is on. I'm in a mess. Okay. The crank is on. The more I look at it, the more I like that silver arm. That is not something I would have done. I never would have thought to do that, but I really like it. So here's the front derailleur. This is a 5800 front derailleur. This one's a braze-on. It did not come with a clamp. I had this one in my bin. It's for a, I don't know, 30.6 seat post, I think. But basically it's just a seat post clamp or a derailleur adapter and a braze-on. So nothing special about this, just like before. Put it on, figure out where it needs to go. I'm looking for 1 to 3 millimeters above the chainring. I'll show you that in a minute. And then tighten it down. So we'll have two adjustments to consider. We'll have height, which is this way, and then we'll have the angle, which is, you know, like this. So I'll show you both of those in just a moment. The first adjustment we want to make is height. So we want this to sit so that when it is in the mid-pull position, so when it's out about there, unfortunately this one goes out relatively straight, but when it's in that mid-pull position, that it sits 1 to 3 millimeters above these teeth. These teeth are not all the same height. It's part of Shimano's Hyperglide system to help this shift. So roll it around. You're looking for the tallest tooth, which is probably that one there. So we're shooting for 1 to 3 millimeters between the tip of that tooth and the bottom edge of that derailleur. And that looks all right to me. Roll the crank around, make sure it doesn't hit. And now the second adjustment we need to do is the angle. So kind of like this. I'll slide you around to the back so you can get a good look at this, and I'll show you what we need to do. I've got you set up at the best angle I could get to show you this. Hopefully you can see it. You're at the back of the bike behind the rear derailleur. So the position we're trying to align is the derailleur in this direction, so it can pivot around the seat tube. What we're trying to do is get the line here of the cage exactly parallel with the line of the teeth. So sight down it and look at it until they're parallel. Line of sight works just fine. When you tighten down the clamp, the derailleur is going to have a tendency to rotate in that direction. So set it so it's at a slight angle outward before you tighten it down. And then when it's tight, it should line up parallel. That looks good to me. I'm going to double check my height is still good, and it is not. So I'm readjusting the height. All right, height looks good. Front to back angle, oof. Looks good. I'm going to tighten it down right there. I moved the bike, didn't I? I'll bet you guys couldn't see that. So we made good progress. We got the bars on, we got the shifters, the derailleurs, and the crankset installed. It's 10:30 at night, and tomorrow I've got to drive into Denver, so I've got to be up really early, about 6 a.m. I'm a night owl. I am not a morning person. So I could be up until 2 a.m., that's just fine, but don't ask me to get out of bed before 8. So if I'm going to have any chance of getting into the office on time, I've got to call it a night. So tomorrow after work, we'll continue putting this together. So the next thing we're going to do is install those new brake calipers. We're going to run the cables, we're going to put the wheels on, we're going to tune the shifting, and hopefully if we've got enough time, we'll get out and see how it rides. I'm kind of excited. All right, welcome back. So it's the next day. You probably figured that out because it's light outside and what I'm wearing has changed. So the bike is looking pretty good. I think today we can get it finished. So we're to the point now where we can cable it, and cabling should go pretty fast. The housings are all cut. Basically, I've just got to pull the cables through. I'm going to cut the front shift housing shorter by about 1 inch. That'll give me 1 inch more cable to work with, and hopefully I won't have to replace the cables. I did some measuring. I've got the room for it, so I think that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to zoom you guys in so you can see this area, and hopefully without too much dialogue, I will get this cabled. These are the front shift cable housings that we cut before and fitted to the bike. I put them on here just to look, and with the bars, with these new shifters, I think I can actually cut off. So see, if we're right here, we've got enough cable that it won't bind when it turns. And that looks like it's about an inch shorter. So it's about that much shorter. It's a little bit more than an inch. So I'm going to cut this back a little bit. What that'll do is when I run the cables through, we'll have that much more cable. Hopefully, when I get it through, if I've got to cut the ends off, I've got plenty of room. I won't have to replace the cables. I don't know if you've ever heard people say that bike cables stretch, so you have to readjust them after, a few hundred miles. It's not actually true. The cables are made of steel. They've got a high tensile strength. The cables aren't doing any stretching. What's happening is the housing is compressing. So everywhere you've got an end, everywhere it meets up with the frame or an adjuster, after a few hundred miles, those get worked together, and that's why the cables need to be adjusted. It doesn't really have to do with cable stretching, but cable housing compressing. So if you ever mention that to somebody on the internet, especially if you're on Reddit, there you go. Make sure you don't say that bike cables stretch, or you'll never hear the end of it. How the wires or the cables all route up front is kind of up to you. I like to do it just so it's neat when the bars, when you move the fork around. It's kind of trial and error like everything else on every bike build, because every bike is different. Every bike is different. Is that Monty Python? All right, so I'm going to run it through here in front of the shift cable and then into the frame. All right, so there's our housing. Routing the cables through those is super easy, barely an inconvenience. And you've seen me do it before, so I am not going to record that. But I will bring you guys back once I've got the cables routed through and hooked up. And we'll get the chain installed. If you pop these master links apart frequently, these pliers are super cheap on Amazon. I don't know, under 10 bucks. I didn't have one for years. I used to do the needle nose plier trick, but I got these and I use them all the time. So if you do a lot of work with these reusable master links, I recommend getting a pair of these. All right. I'm going to move you guys and roll this around. And let's see if we think that chain is the right length. So I got the chain shifted into the largest chain ring and almost the largest sprocket. Let's see if I can get it to go. All right. And that is what my derailleur looks like. So I think my chain is a little short. What do you guys think? Would you run it like that, knowing that you're very infrequently in this gearing combination, or would you add 2 links to this chain? Let's go down and see how it looks in the 2 smallest gears, the 2 smallest chain ring and the smallest sprocket. Because if the chain is shorter, this is going to have to go back further. I think I need to add 2 links. So I don't have a link that I can rivet in. I don't have a link. So I don't have a link and a pin that I can put in here. So instead, I'm just going to take another piece of chain and put in a second master link. So it'll be another piece of chain and 2 master links. I know that's not the right way to do it, but for right now, I think it'll work until I can either get a longer chain or get the correct pin so I can put this together. So hold on, let me fit another master link and then we'll do this again and you guys can tell me if you think that looks right. This is what I have for spare master links. Every time I pull a chain off, I save the master links. Sometimes I'll also save a length of chain. Being a bike parts hoarder actually pays off from time to time. So I did find a short length of 11-speed Shimano chain. So I'm going to break out one of these inner links from this, and then I'm going to join it together with another master link. One link, two link. Seth from Burn Peak did a video where he had a chain that was just all master links. He wrote it hard. He didn't have any trouble with it. If I remember, I'll put a link to that video because it's pretty interesting. So there we go. I'm going to zoom you guys back out so you can see it. We'll roll it through shifting and see what it looks like in the big chainring, big cassette, big gear, big sprocket. In the smallest combo, it looks just fine to my eyes. And I have not adjusted the shifting yet. I'm just trying to get the chain length right. I think that's right. We don't have a ton of, this doesn't look overextended. The derailleur doesn't look overextended. And when it's in the smallest combination, we've still got enough chain tension. So I think that is the right chain length. I'm really glad I had a spare master and was able to put that together. So now it's time to adjust the shifting, get it shifting correctly. I'm not going to show you how to do derailleur adjustment. I did a short on that and it was pretty well done. So I'll just put a link to that short up above. If you want to see how to tune derailleurs, check it out if you want to. But I'm going to switch the camera off. I'm going to get this tuned and then I'll show you guys how it looks. Hopefully it turns out all right and it's not like the last time I did it where the shifting is complete garbage afterwards. So hold on, I'll get this tuned. We'll be right back. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I may have to tweak it a little bit after I write it, but I think we're golden. So the last thing I want to show you guys before I take this out and write it is adjusting the brake pads. They're way off and I haven't shown you how to do that yet. So it's really easy. You can make it difficult, but it's also really easy. So here's the quick and dirty way I adjust pads. So I take them loose, both sides, although that really doesn't matter, I suppose. And then I squeeze the lever good and hard. And I put the pad so that it sits pretty much centered on the rim track, kind of like you see here. Adjust it slightly. And then I tighten it down. There's a lot more you can do with toe and everything else, but this method works just fine. And it's super easy for you to do. So doing the same thing on the other side, though you can't see it. And then I will do the same thing on the front. And we'll have brakes. And now I can take it outside and show it off. All right, bingo. So those tires that came with the wheels, they actually turned out not to be such a great deal. They were in good shape and they looked to be in good shape. I went out and I put, I don't remember, 25-ish miles on them last night. And when I got home, the rubber was starting to flake off of the sidewalls. So I think they're old. They're probably older than the bike. So instead of using those, I got a set of these Goodyear Eagle Sports. These were the cheapest name brand tire I could find that also had the tan wall, because I really like the looks of the tan wall. I weighed these, they weigh in at 237 grams each, isn't too bad. So I've pulled off those old tires. I'm gonna fit these just because having good tires is a smart thing to do. This is my first time using Goodyear branded bike tires. So I hope I have a good experience with them because they were $30 a piece on Amazon. Same price as those cheap American Classics that I got that actually didn't really work out that well either. These are not tubeless, they're tubed, so they should hopefully fit on and be something I can change while I'm riding. Those tube type or those tubeless American Classics that I had on fit so tightly that I don't think I could have changed them roadside if I had to. They were a struggle just to get on the rim here in the shop. So one of the reasons I wanted to get rid of them is that I don't want to call my wife to come pick me up just because I have a flat. And with those, it felt like a flat was inevitable and I wouldn't be able to change it. All right, well, I'm gonna get this tire changed. You guys don't have to watch me. This isn't the tire changing paint drying channel. So I'll get these fitted and I'll show you how they look. I got the tires installed. Unfortunately, they fit really tightly. I had to use levers. I actually wasn't sure I was gonna get them onto the rim. I don't know if it's the tires or that these Casserium wheels have such a shallow rim bed, but these went on so tightly, I don't think I'd be able to change them roadside, at least without tools. I typically run Continental 5000s. Those fit the rim loosely enough you can get them on and off with your fingers. So I'll just have to make sure I remember my tire levers when I ride. So the whole point of this video was to see if we made some good decisions, if we could build a better bike for about the same cost that we did the first time around. So I want to take a look at what this bike cost me. So let's pretend that the original bike, so in the first video, didn't happen. I'm going to add up the cost of all the parts that went into building this bike, and let's see how the two compare. I added up the costs for this version of the bike, and I did it as if the first version didn't happen. So I've included a list of what I spent. The total build came out at only $863. So that's $63 is all over what I spent on the initial build. This bike is a full 105 bike, and if I were to go out and buy a bike with 105, I think that would run somewhere around $1,500 maybe. It's been a couple years since I've looked at the bike market, and I know it's down right now, so that number may not be accurate. So from that point of view, with the bike having better components and competing against better bikes, this is starting to look a little bit better on the might be worth it scale. But ultimately, it's going to boil down to how the bike rides. I want to weigh the bike, see how it compares both to what it weighed when I first got it and what it weighed to the initial build. So let's see where it's at. I'm hoping it's lighter given that, we use some better components. But we will see in a moment. I got to turn the scale on. So I'm giving it to you in pounds because that's what I'm familiar with, and then I'll convert it to kilograms. All right. So right now, that scale, you probably can't see it, but I'll put it on the screen. It's jumping around 20.7 pounds. So if I recall right, it was initially 23.6, so that's about 3 pounds. And then the first build, it was 21 even. So we saved another 0.4 pounds. So I'd say taking the bike down 3 pounds was worth it because that's 3 pounds again that I don't have to haul up a hill. I uploaded last night's ride to Strava, so if you're curious how I did on this bike after these upgrades, the link to that ride is in the description. As to whether or not this version of the bike with these upgrades made rebuilding this old road bike worth it, I'm kind of on the fence there. The drivetrain, the new 105 11-speed, is night and day better than that old 8-speed Claris. The bike rides so much better and for only $63 more. So for $863, I've now got a road bike with full 105. I think finding a new bike with similar spec would be difficult. I expect we would spend at least twice that. Comfort-wise though, the bike is not any better. It's still got a really stiff ride. I didn't do anything to change that. I did fit new tires. I haven't ridden on them yet. I just put them on this morning, but they're only 25 millimeters wide and they've still got 70 PSI in them, so I doubt they made much difference with respect to ride quality. So I'm on the fence. If I were to do it again, I still think I probably wouldn't do it. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this and leave comments and feedback if you decide to do that. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.